Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Sober Wise Guy, part of the Incomplete Skeptic. Sober Wise Guy just really enjoys interviewing folks who are in long-term recovery. This fellow's been sober longer than me. His name is Andrew L. Good Irishman. Well, American, but of Irish ancestry. Um, Me too. So welcome to Sober Wise Guy, brother.
Thank you.
Want to introduce yourself and state your discipline and all that good stuff?
Sure.
You know,
My name's Andrew McGill. I'm an alcoholic. Sobriety date's May 12th, 1989. So I'm coming up on 36 years. And
sweet.
I've got 13 years in Al-Anon too.
Nice. Awesome. What do you have your entry point for Al-Anon? A lot of people don't. They only have a
October,
month.
beginning of
October, okay.
October. Yeah, 12 years ago. I
Sweet.
can't remember if it was 12 or 13. I want to say, yeah, it's 12 years ago. 12 years ago, at the beginning of October.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out my entry point as well, and I know it was May and it was on Wednesday, and I couldn't figure out for positive, but I think it was the third Wednesday
Hmm,
of
okay.
of May. So it's like I'm only guessing, but um, I had to look back and try and figure it out. Almost nobody in Al-Anon knows their literal date, it seems like, unless it's just
No,
like it's the day they lost a spouse or something.
it's not
A
quite the
tragic.
life
Yeah,
or
yeah.
death thing.
Yeah, not quite the same.
No.
But seems like a lot of us in AA do remember. And it's the rare ones who aren't sure.
Yeah.
And I've noticed that the ones that don't remember, the ones that had so many relapses that they just couldn't put it together. And when they finally did get it, they probably didn't believe this was the time. And and I
Yeah.
look back at what date was that? Gosh darn it anyway. So so yeah, welcome to the show, and I'm glad we could get you back on here for your sober date. It'd be kind of cool if we just continue that tradition,
Okay.
as long as I'm still kicking. So
Yes.
so we're not getting any younger. And
No.
so do you have well, first before I ask this, I want to explain what a home group is. I'm going to ask you if you have a home group. Some of us do
Yes.
in long term. Okay. A home group, folks, is basically a meeting that we do our very best to make every time they have a meeting, at
Mhm.
least once a week. And it's like their family. That's why we call it home. And they get to see all of our defects. They know all the cool things about us, all the not so cool things maybe.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's like family. People just
Yep.
kind of they see all your stuff. And um and there's a few of us in this world who didn't actually have literal biological families to grow up with, and those of us that did, it wasn't necessarily such a wonderful ride, but no regrets. And
Not so much the Waltons.
yeah, right. So
Not
so
so much the Waltons.
yeah, I'm one of those guys that actually felt like I had acquired a family when I sobered up,
Yeah.
and it took me a little bit to understand these people are like a family I never had. And so we had a broken family myself, so unlike anyone else in the program. And so what's your home group in case someone wants to look you up and visit?
Rosemount, Alano, Rosemount, Minnesota. So it's the Wednesday night 7:30 step meeting at Rosemount, Alano, Rosemount AA.
And a step meeting means,
We pick a step each week, talk about the step, share around the room how we work that step, what it means to us, how it's developed, that kind of thing. And then one person will present on the tradition. So we'll cover a step and then present on a tradition.
Oh, cool. So, the sharing of the tradition comes first, or the sharing on the step?
Tradition comes first. One
Okay.
person will present on the tradition, and then we start the meeting. We'll usually split up into two groups if we get enough
Have enough
people.
people.
Typically, there is, and then we'll go on and talk about the step.
All right, cool. And the step, as most people listening will know, refers to the 12 steps um, of AA and Al-Anon, and well, in this case, AA.
Yep.
Do you have a home Al-Anon group?
Yeah, kinda. It's tough
Yeah,
getting out of work these days. So the
right,
one
right.
I go to most of the time is the 6:30 one, also at Rosemount, Illinois. 6:30 Thursdays.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I went without a home group in Al-Anon for quite a while, and um, so yeah, I just did. So,
Hmm.
and I'd hit odd meetings here and there,
Yeah.
and definitely ate, breathed, and slept, you know, uh, AA and Al-Anon principles, and talked to a lot of people, and I wasn't like sitting back on my laurels or being lazy or anything like that. Or at least that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. There might have been days here and there, who knows.
Yeah.
But in the big picture, I know how important it is. So what is it that was a catalyst for you in AA to make you say, I'm doing this deal?
Oh, the first step. So I woke up in jail. We were just talking about this last night, actually. I woke up in jail for the umpteenth time. I'm a East St. Paul Irish Catholic hoodlum. I was in jail constantly.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I was in jail constantly from 14 to 23 years of age, Minnesota and Southern California. And my second DWI happened to be in the car business at the time. Um, and I remember waking up in the downtown, the St. Paul jail, St. Paul Police Department jail was downtown St. Paul. This is a long time ago. It's moved since then, but it was downtown St. Paul, overlooked the freeway, and across the freeway, you could see the Tasty Bread plant. And I remember waking up in the middle of the night and rolling over and looking around and thinking, well, this looks like jail. I couldn't possibly be in jail again. And sure as shit, 7 a.m., here comes the stale donut and the orange juice through the bars for breakfast, and I was in jail.
Oh,
And that's when
goodness.
I realized something was wrong. I hadn't created much of anything as far as spouse, houses, kids, family, all that kind of stuff. But my peer group, my friends, were beginning to do that. And I knew immediately that there was something wrong. Something had to change. I didn't put together that I was an alcoholic at that point. I'd been court ordered to AA though. And so I knew that that would be the solution to get this drinking stuff figured out. I knew the drinking had to quit. I didn't know about the promises and the steps and all the rest of that, of course. But
Mhm.
that was kind of when that moment of clarity hit. And since then, I just refuse to go back. It's as simple as that. I absolutely refuse to go back.
And how did you keep that decision intact?
Uh,
It's like there's a difference between saying I'm going to have a strong body and and be dedicated to it, but not do any push-ups, you know what I mean, or something.
well, I got fortunate in that I was working with a fellow that was going to Maplewood AA at the time. And I remember I got out of jail, I had a brand new car, an impound, got that, went to work, and I went up to Gary M. and I just said, hey, would you take me to a meeting? And he did what we did. Yeah. And I ended up getting in with the right people for the most part and got a sponsor and still have the same sponsor. Um, but I got in with the right group of people, and my sponsor always said, run with the winners.
Hmm.
There's those cliches we hear, keep your head in the herd, run with the winners. And I've just managed to do that. I've just managed to, between people coming in the rooms for the first time, between seeing people that relapse, people die from this. We just had a fatality this week at Rosemont AA. Um,
Hmm.
but
How did
between
how did it happen?
health issues related to
Oh,
alcoholism.
oh, yeah, sure. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, health issues.
Yeah, people need to hear that because, I think a lot more of us die than survive this. This is
Oh,
really, yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Between drinking and driving accidents and suicides and mental illness and health
Hmm.
issues and yeah, the
Yeah.
constantly stepping over bodies. We're
Yeah, it's like
constantly
slow
stepping over.
suicide.
It absolutely is.
Hmm.
And I think all of those things have always just kept it um oh, excuse me. Omnipresent that like we talk about in the rooms. You can always
Hmm.
have all that misery back.
Right, right.
You
Refunds.
just
Yep.
can. I mean, it's been bouncing in my head this last week drinking, and I still have drinking dreams here and there.
Hmm.
But
Interesting. Huh.
oh yeah, it's always on your left shoulder waiting for you.
Yeah, it's funny. I didn't have any drinking dreams for over 20 years. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's just kind of odd. Usually people do, but I had like tons and tons of weed dreams. I was constantly waking up feeling like, oh God, I relapsed. I was smoking weed, and because the only reason I quit smoking weed because I was just concerned that it would undermine my commitment to um it's like I'd end up drinking. I'd smoke weed
Yes.
and it would contaminate my consciousness and I'd drop my guard and I'd start drinking again.
Yeah.
And, weed isn't the thing that got me in trouble. Drugs, I could drop any drug in my personal life. I was just able to stop any drug. I didn't like the consequences. I quit, but I couldn't do that with alcohol. So it
No.
definitely got my respect. So anyway, that's the dreams that I had. And then finally, after decades, I had a couple of drinking dreams. I was going, what's going on there? So, the disease, like you say, is always out in the parking lot doing push-ups,
Doing
waiting, waiting
push-ups.
for us to get weaker than it is. So, and
I think that I kind of in a similar spot. I didn't have drinking dreams for a long time, and then my sister was one of us. More pot and meth than alcohol. I'm like you. I pot, drugs, I could care less, but don't touch my alcohol.
mhm, mhm. Right.
Don't go near my alcohol.
Yeah, don't
Uh,
try to burn down my holy
no,
temple.
alcohol's my thing. And but
Hmm.
this fella at the club died this week, and his sister put it on the club's Facebook
Hmm.
page, and it just kind of reminded me of all of those that have gone before us, and especially my sister. She was one of us. She died 12, 13 years ago. And that's when the drinking stuff started going through my head. What the hell am I doing this for? The
Hmm.
pain comes back, the grief. But then
Yeah.
you just kind of remember, I'd rather be alive.
Yeah, I would have committed suicide in during the darker parts of my recovery had I not been interested in helping other people as part of it. And
Big part.
you know, and if I'm dead, I can't help anybody. And plus, it's not my life to take. I turn
No,
my will and my life over to the care of God, and it belongs to
exactly.
God, and I ain't stealing it from him. So I used to beg him, Andrea, say, "Will you kill me then?" You know, and
No.
no, no, he just kept doing this really cool stuff for me, and
I think gratitude goes a long ways towards it too.
hmm.
If you can stay, when I get out of bed in the morning, the first thing I do is hit my meditations, which puts me in gratitude, puts me in contact with my higher power, and just helps the day go by. Just helps keep me sober and
Hmm.
keep me centered, heading in the right direction. It doesn't mean I don't get in my head, don't have a bad day, don't have a bad attitude. All that shit can happen, but if you at least start the day out right with meditations and a commitment to staying sober today, man, that goes a long way.
For real. I had a friend who was hit by a drunk driver and she lost her memory from the point of impact backward and she went through hell to get her life back and she had to do it as another person because she didn't remember who she was. And she lost her her
Wow.
fiance, didn't know her mom and dad, and etc. Her body was messed up and but one day she had a breakthrough, but it was after a very painful moment, right? And she said, I was listening to her in a MAD panel talk about this many times
Yeah.
because, I got involved with MAD and spoke as well. And, but Sharon, her mom was walking Chris, her daughter that got hit, down the
Yeah.
hall, holding on to her arm and elbow, and because she couldn't walk right, and her face was disfigured, and she looked nothing like the beautiful woman that existed before, and
Yeah.
scars, and she's going through surgeries for her face and other parts of her body, and Chris looked into the uh, double pane uh, window, mini square window
Yeah.
panes in the door, and she saw her own reflection grimacing in pain, and she got so mad, she punched through both panes of glass with her hand on her
Wow.
reflection, right, and gashed her hand open. And of course, Sharon panics and gets her down to the hospital and they stitch her up and stuff. But for her, that was a breakthrough moment. And it's like God did something in her mind. And the the very next day when she woke up, her feet hit the floor and she thanked God for another day of living. And that's a miracle that someone can go from such pain to such surrender in such a
Yeah.
moment. And when I
Yes.
heard that, Andrew, I thought, shit, if she can do it, I can do it, you know?
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
and then came another, I don't know how many years, I know I'm talk about decades, but at least for another 20 years. Every morning I got up, that was my meditation, is my feet would fly up, hit the floor, and I'd thank God for another day living. And sometimes I would read various things. Trying to remember the name of that Methodist book that Pastor Joe, um,
Oh, I don't
Upper
know.
Room, the Upper Room. Yeah,
Okay.
I used to read that for some years, or I'd read, the little black book that Hazelden printed,
Yeah.
the Daily Reader, and they read that in my very first meeting and stuff. So I'm not as I don't do it as well as you, I think, but I do have this thing in my spirit that says when I get up, if I feel grumpy or anything like that, I try to center it in my spirit and heart and to be at peace and loving toward, the cats, the world around me, think good
Yes.
thoughts. And I try to make sure that I'm in that mode before I get out of bed, you know.
Yeah.
And I almost always do that. I think I might forget a little bit and sometimes do it a little later, like, I'm wiping cobwebs out of my eyes and go, oh, wait a
Yes.
second, man, say a prayer. And I usually ask God to help me have a good day, and to be of service and things. So, I think that concept of you're getting up and doing the meditation, um, that is a game changer for so many of us, start
Yes.
your day right. And nobody has a perfect, you know, um, resume, right?
No.
We make mistakes. We're still going to screw up and violate our own belief systems, like, be mean to somebody, say something obnoxious, you know, um, but I don't know about you, but it's like slowly but surely the frequency and the intensity of those nasty moments, they get weaker and weaker and weaker, and
Yes.
we get better and better and better,
Yes.
so
Exactly. That's
mm.
that's what the step process does to me. For I believe, we have an opportunity to reset any minute of the day. First off, if say you miss your meditations, or you do it, but still something goes sideways at 10:30 in the morning, you can start over. You can also be of service. I mean, that's huge. Just being of service. And that whole meditation thing to me is, I think that that's just how life evolves. I think that's kind of what life is about, is how we relate to our higher power from birth to death. I grew up Catholic and I got away from the Catholic Church. Then I went back. Now I go to a different church. And my spirituality now is really just as simple as not saying most of the crazy shit that goes through my brain.
Amen to that.
Yeah, it really is. It's just, on the character defects, that step process, you identify them. sarcasm, anger, resentment, whatever it is, the seven deadly sins, all that stuff. And you have an opportunity to turn them over to your higher power, and then you don't have to participate in them when they pop up. Sometimes we still do, but now we know what they are, that how we are not, how they're not an option for us, how we need to keep them in balance. Like anger is a necessary emotion, but we don't keep it in balance. So when that starts to get out of balance for me, I stop, pray on what the problem is, and try to give it to my higher power. And it's usually fear, control, or anger, or not anger, fear and
Yeah, I know
control.
what you mean. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
fear and control are usually what the problems are when it comes to anger. And that's true with any character defect. And when I can do that, all of a sudden I'm a productive member of society. All of a sudden,
Nice.
people want me around. All of a sudden, my boss isn't hiding from me. All of a sudden, the cat's not hiding. And the list goes on and on and on. And that's love. Ernie Larson
Mhm.
always said that you can make it as simple as this: God is love, love is God. At the end of the
Amen.
day, we all just want to be loved. So if
Amen.
I'm loving people, however that looks, even if it's just saying good morning and holding the door for somebody, if I'm loving people, that means I'm letting people love me back.
Funny thing about love and service, you mentioned both, and I'm going to consider them definitely related. Um, but I don't know, it just crossed my mind. It's like, okay, I mean, in the 12-step program, nobody says you have to have a higher power of a particular brand. You can be
No.
of any tradition. You don't even have to have, you can be an agnostic. You can even
Yep.
be an atheist, but you just have to remember you're not playing God. The only thing about God is that you ain't it, you know?
Yes.
And um, but the love and the service thing, it occurred to me is that Christ, which is my HP,
Yes.
he uh, served. He was a great servant,
It's
and he
all he did.
always pointed somewhere else when they tried to give him credit. He'd say, "I do nothing except for what I've seen my Father in heaven go do." So he always gave credit to someone else, and it's like,
Yep.
and people think we're deluded when we're praying and asking God for, first and foremost, Thy will, but we're asked to pray about everything, but yet turn it over,
Hmm.
So, and humbly ask God to remove our shortcomings is one of the things that is suggested that we do, you know. So we can ask about particular things, and people would kind of poo-poo the idea. It's like, what do you think? God's going to fix it for you? He's going to step in and do this?
Hmm.
Well, yeah, maybe God will do something for us that we can't do for ourselves. That's a possibility, sure. But it's in God's timing. And it's like if I've prayed about having a defect removed and God doesn't remove it, then I assume that it's serving a higher purpose or a greater purpose. And what that is, I don't need to know. So
Yeah.
I don't see where that violates any moral dogma anywhere. Um, but the idea that we're deluded to believe in God is like, well, if anyone wonders about that, maybe they should just ask themselves. Even if they don't believe in God, they think there isn't one, they're sure there isn't one. Ask anyway, you know?
Hmm.
And I've learned in life to have an open mind and do the set aside prayer where it's like a paradox, but I'll ask God to help me forget everything I think I know about God, you know? Right? So, and it's none of my business what others think of me. It's not even my business what I think of me. My business is what God thinks of me. So God
Your life
first.
is none of your business.
Yeah, yeah, right, right. So, and and if people are too afraid to try that, to question their own convictions, then who's got the problem?
Exactly.
Who's living in fear? Who's living in the problem over the solution, or the possibility of a solution? So, um, yeah, when I hear you say love and service, to me, that's the crux of the whole program, you know. And I think it's partly what makes me glad to see you when I show up somewhere. There's Andrew, and you got the gentle smile and you have a good time, and you know, um, and hopefully that's what I can do for a few people's lives too. It takes the sharp edges off of our stuff, and you know,
Well,
and
God speaks to us
yeah,
through people, and so if you want to, so I'm still somewhat agnostic. I don't know if they're. I
I
don't
am
know.
too.
I don't
Yeah.
know, but I do know a few things. First off, I got it made. Life wise, my life's awesome. I absolutely got it made. There's still ups and downs a little bit here and there, but generally speaking, I do what I want when I want. Life is awesome. However, there's no way our experience on earth is as good as it gets. Period.
Hmm.
There's no way this is as good as it gets. This cannot be it. This disaster between my ears, there's no way that's as good as it gets. So
Well,
if
that's a
God speaks
paradox
to us through
too.
people, it is.
Mhm.
But another thing too, though, God gave us free will, which therefore means we get to live this life that we're leading, which means we get to make choices. We can choose to be sober. We can choose to participate in our character defects or not. We can choose to plug in via meditation or whatever that looks like for you. We
Mhm.
have all
Mhm.
these choices, and when I make the right choices, which I don't always, but when I make the right choices, life's a lot better, a hell of a lot better. And if God speaks to us through people, get your head in the herd so you can hear what God wants you to do.
God wants me to correct the lighting here, maybe. I don't know.
Well, hopefully,
Yeah.
hopefully people are listening, not watching.
Right. Well, good point.
There isn't much to see here.
Right. Yeah, I don't know what the deal is here with these lights, but
I haven't been mistaken for Tom Cruise in decades, so there's nothing to see here. Hopefully they're listening.
yeah, but our drug test comes back clean, so
Yes,
not
exactly.
so yeah, I don't know what's going on with the lighting. I'm not going to worry about it. So it's an old picture of an old bedroom, and I kind of liked it. So
Sure.
um my phone just made noise again. I think I got distracted, and it's like I thought I put it on silent. I got to do it again.
The
Uh,
biggest thing when you talk about, I don't really look at it as long-term sobriety. I look at it as a day at a time adding up.
True that. True that.
But
Yeah.
when I look at the guys I run with long-term sobriety, they're always doing the basics. They're always trying to be honest, do the next right thing, go to meetings, be of service. They got sponsees. They're plugging in as much as they can. And that's when I first sobered up, I was in the car business retail. I didn't have time for nothing. I also had kids and was starting, all that stuff. And so I didn't have time for nothing. So I went to the Tuesday night 9:45 meeting because it was after work. And then I would plug in as much as I could on weekends or events like Go for State, the men's retreat, that kind of stuff, which still gets your head in the herd, still keeps you connected. And the more you can stay connected and run with the winners, the better your chance is that all of a sudden it's 35 years later, you've been sober the whole time.
Right on. It's like, how'd
Yeah.
that happen? I
How
was
that
shocked. Yeah.
exactly. That's exactly it though. I
Hmm.
sit here today and I'm gonna be 59 in a couple of weeks, 36 years sobriety. What? That's not this guy. That is not this guy.
Hmm. Hmm.
Period. That is not me. That is my higher power, the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, and just doing those basic, simple things. Period. There's no other answer. There's no magic beans.
Hmm.
There's
Hmm.
no nothing. It's as simple as that.
I want to pursue an idea that some people might scratch their heads about with being an agnostic. When I co-signed that immediately because, and I don't say it very often, but
Yeah.
I consider myself an agnostic, not in the sense that I don't believe in God, but in the sense that I don't know that I prefer to say I don't know there's a God because then if I rely on my knowledge over my faith, then what good is faith? Knowledge kills faith. Knowledge kills um,
Most
trust.
things. Yeah,
Trust,
most
yeah,
things.
yeah, all the things that defy description like miracles. How do miracles happen? Well, if I know something, then it's like science, you know. Well, I trust the science. Oh, you trust science. So you're still
No,
doing
you're
what
looking
the
for a loophole.
religion, yeah, you're doing what the religionists are doing. You're trusting.
Yeah.
So how are they any different than us? So anyway, I just feel like you know, I've had miracles happen when I let go and asked. And it's living in the question is so important. If you want wisdom, ask. People don't have wisdom because they don't ask. They don't
Mhm.
have an experience with God because they don't ask God. And it requires a little humility, you know, and
Yes.
you know, shrinking our egos and all that stuff. And so so that's what I was talking about when I agreed about the agnostic part is it's um, I keep hearing noises out there. I've got a back door open and I'm just
You should be
I
hearing
think
noises where you live.
yeah, right. Yeah, so as long as it's not
You know,
gunshots, we're happy, you know. So
yes. I look at it as I believe, and probably the most important thing about the whole debate is that everybody listening personally investigates religion and spirituality and creates a relationship and questions everything. That's the most important thing. Because the fact is, nobody really knows. Yes, there's the Bible. Yes, there's the Quran. Yes, there's the Torah. Yes, there's all this stuff, all of which may be accurate and true, or maybe not. I don't know. But what I do know is I believe we're spiritual beings having a human experience. This cannot possibly be as good as it gets. There's many, many, many near-death experience cases of near-death experiences that demonstrate that are facts. There's many religious experiences that are facts. I've seen countless miracles.
mhm.
So the answer to all those questions is you have to personally investigate, listen, and question. Because I said it a minute ago, but again, I don't think life is about what we think it's about. You know, friends and family and jobs and careers and stuff and experiences, all that's a part of life and important. But I think life is about how we connect to our higher power daily from birth to death. How does that change? How does that grow? How do we get closer to our higher power, whomever that is? I mean, I'm in the same boat as you. To me, it's Jesus, but whatever, don't care.
Mhm.
I think
Mhm.
that's what life is about, though, is how do we connect to our higher power from birth to death, a day at a time? What does that investigation look like to me? And the benefit is peace and serenity.
The Serenity Prayer. I had a vision about the 12 steps when I was 19 years old in the workhouse, long before I sobered up, and you know, sobered up at 33, and
Yep.
so and I didn't know what the dream was about, and then after I came into um, committed sobriety, and I looked back on the dream, it made sense, you know, and um, the Serenity Prayer was like the the height of what I needed to get through loneliness and every other thing, you know.
Yeah.
And those 25 words are perfect to me. I'm going to call them
Yeah.
perfect, and it's not a word we like to banty around often, but I'm going to just call it perfect because I haven't found any chinks in the armor of the Serenity Prayer yet, you know.
No. No.
So, and I kind of think it's a gift. That's why we ask God grant us the serenity to accept the things, you know, eh, uh, God grant us the serenity. I always say us instead of me. Sorry.
And
That's where I'm trying to stop myself. God grant us the serenity to accept the things we cannot change, the courage to change the things we can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And um, everything is a grant us, you know, grant us. We're
yeah.
asking, you know, it's
Yes.
not a demand. All right, God, it's time. You're gonna right now. You are, you know, um, I, you know, I don't think it works that way. And
No, because God's always there. It's up to us
yeah.
to ask, which gets us out of the way.
Hmm.
God's always there. These people, I
Yeah.
found Jesus. Really? He wasn't lost. Maybe you were, but he wasn't.
Yeah, I think he's everywhere at all times, He
Everywhere at
can
all times.
yeah, he can hear everyone's prayer at the very same time and answer it separately.
And
And
asking
don't
allows
it?
us to get out of the way.
Amen. I had a dream, which is going to sound crazy to even be talking about a dream because it's not like something I would say probably in a 12-step meeting.
Hmm.
Um, but it wasn't too long ago, within the last 6 months, I think, I had a dream, and I've had this happen before where I've had like two beings of light that would like angels that would
Yeah.
bring me places, and show me things. And um, and I was brought up to heaven, just not in. I didn't go in heaven, but I was like to where I could see it and I was approaching it. And I had an angel on each side behind me, and they never say anything ever in any of
No,
these night visions. They've never said anything.
no.
They were just there guiding me. And when I looked up, I could see the tree of life. And there was millions of people working in the tree of life. And they were all doing different things for God and for
Good.
service. And I knew what each and every person of those millions of people were thinking and doing at the very same moment, which is impossible. We can't even know what we and one other person are doing,
Right.
in this world. And
Right.
so I got a snapshot, right? And and then I focused in on what one person was doing, and I could see it. And and it was someone I knew that had passed away. So, and it was just really interesting. It's like it's where I got proof that God um can hear every prayer at the same time and do something about it one on one. It can focus in on one. It's like time as we know it has nothing to do with that,
God's not wearing
and
a
yeah,
Rolex
yeah, right, right. So,
or a
so,
Breitling. I got a Breitling. God's
mhm.
not wearing a Breitling, just me.
Amen to that, man. So what do you think is one of the coolest experiences that you've been benefited to see that have happened because of your work with other people?
Oh, absolutely. It's the same in every case. Watching them, the light turn on, and then just watching them grow on the program. Simple as that. Watching them begin to create relationships, real relationships, restore relationships, become employable, get out of themselves. That's probably one of the biggest ones. When they come in, and we were the same way. You come in and you're covered in problems and charges. And it's all
Hmm.
about
Right.
what am I going to do about that? Oh my goodness. And watching those issues get resolved, watching relationships get restored, watching those character defects begin to fade away. That's without a doubt, that's the biggest thing is those experiences. Watching sponsees or people coming in and getting to know them through the meetings, watching them just create a life and get it, and that anxiety and tenseness and all the
Hmm.
isms fade
Hmm.
away and go away, and they become replaced with peace and serenity and acceptance and being able to handle life on life's terms. Just watching all those components start to get installed in people in relation to character defects being removed is easily, and it's a different
Hmm.
different path and journey for everybody. The time frame might be different, the details are different, so it's a little different for everybody, but just watching that process happen in everybody. I try to, I'm not great at it by any means, but I try to remember names at the club, try to remember the new people coming in, and just really watch them get their lives back. It's just such a wonderful miracle because It's not how we're wired. We're wired to die under a bridge.
That's the truth. Or in
Simple
a
as that.
prison
People
cell
are
or
doing it right
something. Yeah.
now. Yeah, people are
Right.
doing it right now.
Hmm.
Well, you and I could go find 1,000 of them in the next hour. That's what we're wired for. And watching that not happen, watching the promises start to come true, it's just wonderful. It's just miraculous. Yeah, it really is. And watching a chronic relapser finally get it. It happens. Man, that's a blessing.
Slowly
I'll
but
tell you.
surely, watching somebody's
Yeah.
frown line turns into smile lines, and that
Yes.
takes a while because your face accommodates your
Yes.
attitude, you know.
Yes.
So, you know, and we both have the grooves between our eyes here from focusing and age.
Yes.
And
What did that
age,
idiot say
What
now?
what did I just
He did
say?
what?
So, so anyway, but you can tell it's like the crow's feet by our eyes and stuff.
Yeah.
Um, there's different types of telltale signs that a life has changed. And
Yes.
the clarity in someone's eyes and that little spark of hope that was replaced by
I
that
yes.
depression and stuff.
I so
Um,
love hearing those stories and
hmm.
watching those stories unfold.
What do you think about the Al-Anon thing? Al-Anon is for friends and family members of those who have suffered from or do suffer from chronic alcoholism or alcoholism, because now they're sober. But we never call it wasm in our program of AA. But what do you
No.
think is the greatest? Well, I don't know about the greatest. That's a big word in this context. But if you could tell somebody one, two, or three things in Al-Anon that are newcomers, what would you tell them?
Oh boy. You came here for all the wrong reasons. You're not going to fix them. The miraculous blessing, though, is you're going to fix you.
Nice.
Number one. Number two, stick around. Stick around because it's really easy to start going to Al-Anon. So when I went, I was already in AA. I already knew I'd already been to a few Al-Anon speaker meetings, so I kind of had an idea what I was in for. And I started going because for me, AA, the obsession is the drink. Al-Anon, the obsession is them,
Hmm.
whomever them is. We can even make a them, be it the boss, a spouse, a kid, whatever, coworkers. There's always a them if we choose it. When I came into Al-Anon, my them was a recent ex-girlfriend, and I came into Al-Anon because I knew it was about relationships, and I knew if I didn't get this relationship crap figured out, I was going to go nuts or relapse. So the first answer is, we come in to fix them. The beautiful part is we learn how to fix us because we're full of codependency and low
Hmm.
self-esteem. And a lot of the stuff we get in AA, but there's no medicine. In AA, the medicine's alcohol till it don't work anymore. There's no medicine
Right.
in Al-Anon. So come in and understand that you're not going to do anything to fix them, period, ever. But you're going to fix yourself. Stick around and learn it and experience the miracle. And then the third thing is help others.
Mm.
Because the
Nice.
because the number one most the biggest blessing with Al-Anon is realizing that I'm not responsible for other people's choices. I'm not responsible for how things may or may not go. I am responsible for taking care of myself, being honest, doing the next right thing, but I'm not responsible for how relationships go from them. They're still going to make choices, regardless of what I may or may not be doing. I still need to do the right thing, be honest, so on and so forth. But ultimately, people are going to do what they're going to do, period. It's as simple as that.
That's the truth. Yeah.
Yeah, and I can choose to be a doormat and wonder what I did wrong and all this happy horse shit, or I can choose to realize that I probably made some mistakes. So that's what the step process is for. That's what meetings are for. But the reality is, I'm not those things I used to be. And if somebody leaves, so be it.
I'd heard in AA something that actually I think would probably came from an Al-Anoner is if they're not if they're in your mind, if they're in your head and they ain't paying rent, a victim, you
Yes.
know. And
Yeah.
I think,
Yeah.
there's a double winner in that's in the room that said that, I think,
Yes.
that'd
Yes.
be my guess.
Yes. Well, I
Uh,
think most people in AA need to go to Al-Anon. When you talked about family, my parents are normies, wonderful people. However, my family tree on both sides is full of drunks, addicts, and nuts.
mhm.
So that ick in the alcoholic, the ism in alcoholism, permeates everything. And Al Anon has been a great tool for improving my relationship with my family, even though they're normies. My parents, I got a better relationship with my parents for years now. My sister passed away, but my brother and my kids, and they still, there's still challenges, but it's a lot better than it used to be, and it's mainly because of Al-Anon and just accepting people for who they are, just accepting that if somebody is in your life and they're nuts sometimes. Well, why is that? Well, when you find out that they grew up in an alcoholic household, but perhaps maybe even a violent one, why wouldn't they be nuts sometimes?
That's
Why
the
wouldn't they
truth.
be? Yeah, so that allows me to accept them where they're at and not create a resentment, not do anything wrong. Maybe step away, create a healthy boundary, that kind of thing. But instead of pointing fingers and it's all them and I'm the victim and so on and so forth, they can look at that situation and go, well, why wouldn't they be nuts? They should be. I'm going to give them some space.
Yeah, time and again, you've reminded me of that saying, it's not illegal to be crazy, it's only illegal to act crazy, you know?
Grateful Greg.
Yeah,
No,
right?
no,
Yeah.
that wasn't it. That's close though. Grateful Greg, who was a
Yeah.
member of Maplewood AA, sadly
Hmm.
passed away
Hmm.
many years ago, always said they do not arrest you for being crazy. They arrest you for acting crazy.
Oh, I like that better, actually.
Yes,
Yeah, cool.
that was
Right?
Grateful Greg used to say that, and it's true.
I remember Grateful Greg, and I remember
Yep,
Gary M.
yep.
And is he still around?
No, I haven't seen Gary
Yeah,
M in
yeah, me
25
either.
years. Yeah,
Yeah,
maybe 30 years.
I think I had reached out to him at one point, long time ago, maybe 15 years or something, and I heard
Yeah,
back from him, and then it just kind of, I don't remember where he was or what was going on. I don't know if he's alive or dead now, but you know,
no idea.
yeah, the longer we're surviving, the more people are gone, you know.
Yes,
So, and we'll see them all again someday.
yes, we will.
Hmm. Looking forward to seeing Mary Jo again someday. And
Yeah,
but I
Brad.
think they become our guardian angels sometimes too, when we think about them, I wonder if maybe it's the case. I don't really have any proof about that one, except for the alcoholic that was in my life did come to me when I was falling in love with Trisha and I was
Sure.
feeling guilty. It's like, oh, even though she was gone and she was dead, the
Yeah.
alcoholic, and I thought, I feel like I'm not being faithful as the alcoholic, and she's dead. She's gone. She's been gone. And and then I felt something on my cheek, and it felt really peaceful, and I couldn't figure out what that was. And then it came to my mind. That's exactly what her kiss on my cheek felt like. And then I sensed her telling me it was okay, you know.
Yeah.
So she came back that time, and she's probably been around at other times where I felt her, but didn't get it at quite uh, a message like that. But and my grandpa came back uh, helped me one time, saved my life one time, but this is before sobriety. So I do
Yeah.
believe in guardian angels and stuff, and you
It's
know.
reasonable.
Yeah, yeah.
Given the shit we do, it's reasonable.
No shit. So, and well, I got someone in the backyard that's running equipment and I've got to shut windows and stuff, I think.
Okay.
But let me see what time it is. I'm going to put this on pause just a second.
Yes, everybody should go to Al-Anon. There's almost nobody in AA that is not affected by someone else's drinking.
Right on. And if you're going to sponsor somebody,
There you go.
you have an alcoholic in your life, you know,
Yes, you do.
and you know, when you see a dog and you say something to them and they know you're talking to them and they can't quite figure out and their heads do this. Yeah, that's what people do in an audience when I say that. You know, say if you know, they go, oh. So, but I really think it's true. I kind of think you know, Al-Anon has helped me understand my AA program better. So, um,
Yes, yes,
yeah.
because mainly because eventually the compulsion to drink and use is lifted. So now we get to handle life on life's terms, and life's about relationships. And Al-Anon helps that. So why wouldn't you get more out of Al-Anon, or as much out of Al-Anon as AA? And why wouldn't Al-Anon help your AA program? Of course it would.
Well, in AA, they said that we didn't have a drinking problem, we had a thinking problem, and that drinking was just a symptom.
Yeah,
So once we remove the alcohol, we have to deal with the thinking problems. It's like, oh my gosh, I've never had to do this before.
yeah,
Maybe, you know. And
yes,
they certainly get into the meat and gristle of it all in Al-Anon because, you know,
yes.
um, yeah, and you just find out, you know, an old woman. Oh God, she'd kill me if she heard me say that. A particular woman in Al-Anon.
He was
Yeah.
67.
Right, right. She said that um, the trick to Al-Anon, the whole point of it is to find out who you are and then be who you are. Nothing
Yeah,
more.
yeah,
And it seems so simple to just be you, but you know, the codependency just freaks out when it's like if somebody else is
they might not like
unhappy,
me. Oh my
yeah,
God.
right. They might not like what I say. They might
Yeah,
react to what I'm about to do. And we're constantly focusing on other people's reaction to life rather than acknowledging it's our reaction to life that is the is the real issue.
yeah,
And I still have difficulty with that. I still spend too much time thinking about what other people would think, especially, you know, my partner. And
yeah. It's
you
not as
know,
bad as it used to be, but yes.
oh no, much better. Yeah. You know, I
We're
still
hard.
have the program tools, but you know,
I think that we're hardwired for a lot of that. That negativity, the character defects, that codependency. I think that we're hardwired for that. And the program and our higher power allows us to rewire, remove a lot of that, rewire a lot of that, but it's always there. It's just
yeah. Yeah.
how much does it pop up now and how much do we participate in it?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. There's, you know, it's just I've seen people stay in pain for long periods of time in either program, and I've noticed people, this is just my take on it, um, is people that relapse in AA are the ones that I think weren't willing to go to any lengths. There is something they were holding back on. There is it's like Achilles, you know, the Achilles heel. Um, and you know, he did everything so well, but he had the one weakness, and that's what killed him, you know.
Honesty. It's honesty and a
Hmm.
lack of
Yeah.
faith.
Yeah, there's only one universal truth, and it's called honesty. And it
Yeah.
all looks different on the outside. All of our honesty looks different. Our motivations might be different or similar, but you know, if we're being honest, whether my take on it is whether, regardless of what our disciplines are, in recovery, whatever our politics, our religion, our legal opinions and philosophies. But if we're truly being honest, that is the one thing that will lead us to a healthy lifestyle.
Yes.
You know, to be honest with ourselves, don't be a prick about it. We're not talking about being honest and beating the shit out of people with it and beating people over the head with a Bible or a Quran or anything, you know.
Yep.
Um, But, most of the people I've met that are people of faith, they don't do that. There's a few, it's just how it is. There's always an
Mhm.
extremist somewhere.
Yeah.
Um, but, you know, but the honesty part, you can start, if a person is truly, truly honest, that's your beginning. And, I think that's why it's part of our slogan, honest, open, and willing, you know.
Honesty for us is us being rigorously honest, just like it says in the book. Rigorously honest with myself about who I am. That's the number one component of honesty, is me being rigorously honest with myself that I'm an alcoholic. That if I take the first drink, 2 through 100 are right behind it 98% of the time. Period.
Right on.
That will
Yeah,
never change. And that's the number one component of being rigorously honest and being an honesty in the program.
you're wondering what I'm doing here. My cat is after a silverfish, and I think he caught him. Oh God, I want to give him a reward. Oh, nope. He held him down, but then stared at him and then lifted up his paw and he flew again. Oh, darn. I guess he just wasn't willing to go to any lengths. I don't
No.
I don't know. So, um, so what is a sponsor?
Sponsor is just somebody to take you through the steps in the book. Simple as
They,
that.
uh, it's like you get a job somewhere and somebody that knows the job trains you how to do the job
Teaches you
or
how to
how
do
they
it.
do it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sponsors are not marriage counselors, guidance counselors, therapists. They shouldn't be telling you how to drive. None of that stuff. Now, the fellowship and the relationships we create with our friends in the fellowship, there's a lot of that. I got all kinds of that saying where people that would not normally mix.
Hmm.
I got all kinds of accountants and attorneys and electricians and plumbers and mechanics and people I know in the program that I ask questions about and experiences and that kind of thing. But sponsorship is about taking somebody through the steps and through the book. Simple as that. Everything else is icing on the cake, and everything else is advice and direction you should take with a grain of salt most of the time.
What do you think about the founders of AA?
Thank God for them.
Right?
Probably the most important thing to remember about that is the last paragraph on page 164. We realize we know only a little. More will be revealed to you and to us.
That is so true. And people think that we're playing the know-it-all or something, and that it's right in the book. We admit we know only a little,
Yes.
and we have to remind ourselves of that, and while I think that the person unwilling to do one particular thing in recovery, I'll do anything but that sort of a thing,
Mm-hmm.
like going to a meeting more often, I you do that, you know. I remember a woman who, uh, good friend of mine, she was sober 20 years and relapsed. And when I think she started smoking weed, and then before long, she was doing crack cocaine and went back to drinking and was driving under the influence. And, we were still friends, and I talked to her and saw the problems all over the place. And I just talked about that universal truth that I talked about earlier, honesty. I said it's an honesty program. And you know
Yeah.
and I said, if you're not willing to go to any lengths, and any lengths means being honest, you'll have to maybe tell your employer why you're not showing up instead of saying you're sick all the time. I used to call in with the alcohol flu all the time, or whatever. And or I'd wake up in jail and try to communicate to my job that I'll be back in a couple of days, God willing, the creeks don't rise. And but usually I wouldn't be back,
Yeah.
But anyway, she said, "Well, I can't tell my boss that I'm doing this because I'll lose my job. I can't tell my kids this because they'll tell my X, and my ex will tell the court and I'll lose my kids. I can't do this and I can't do that. I can't be honest. And I said, well, look, if you don't be honest, you're going to lose them anyway. You're going to lose your kids. You're going to lose your job. You're going to lose your car.
Yeah.
That's all going anyway. And she just wouldn't do it. She just wouldn't do it. And then she ended up doing time in Shakopee, a women's prison.
Shakopee.
Yeah.
Yes.
And and did her bit, and she's out now, last I heard. And there's I don't know, there's always a way out, but it takes a lot of courage sometimes. And just I don't know, I can't really say for sure why she wouldn't receive that, you know. But
There's a,
uh,
I got to get going. I got
yeah, yeah.
a dentist appointment at 3, but I'll finish with one more thing. When we
Okay.
read the preamble, or how it works, not the preamble, when we read how it works and it says, rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our path. I've never seen someone fail that has thoroughly followed our path. Our
I
path
can't think of
is,
any either. I'm not sure
think
it's
about
true,
that,
but
because
yeah,
our path is, you got a sponsor, you got sponsees, you've done all the steps, multiple times.
and still
Meetings,
do.
meetings aren't the program. It's where we carry the message, get a lot of gratitude, the fellowship, so on and so forth, get newbies. It's extremely important for all those things. But the program is the 12 steps in our relationship with our higher power, having a sponsor and having sponsees. I've never seen someone fail that's done that.
Well, Mr. Andrew, I don't want to make you late for your dental appointment. I think
No, then
because
I'd
of
have to
this
go again.
conversation, I'll have to I think I'm going to put the promises in the um description this time, you
Do
know,
it.
and um maybe how it works or something. I'll pray and meditate on that part, and I'll send you the link when I put it up. So, all right, brother, thank you for your willingness to be on Sober Wise Guy. It's awesome. Good to see you again, and spend
You
an
too.
hour and 15 minutes. So,
Yeah,
peace out. Keep it simple.
I will. See you
Take
soon. Thank
care.
you.
All right. Peace out.
Yep. Bye.